Sailor Moon. Oh no, Seth's one of those weird adult Sailor Moon fanboys. Somebody get some garlic and a cross. We've got some exercising to do. Probably lives on a diet of celery and peanut butter, sniveling away at it in some corner like a pervert. Hey now, that's uncalled for. I've never even seen a full episode of Sailor Moon. I didn't have cable growing up, and my concerning eating habits are nobody else's business. Besides, Sailor Moon has earned it. More than just a nostalgia feeder, the series has continued to evolve and grow a globe-spanning fan base. The franchise has even bridged the generation gap and crossed cultural boundaries. Japanese, Americans, Canadians, Iranians, Pomeranians, Freemason, ISIS. Then there's this guy.
I suppose it's something I need to do. I want to find out more about her and find out the things I don't know and the little other things.
It was only a matter of time before the show got so popular they made a symphonic poem out of it. Well, that just sounds excessive, Seth. You bet it is, but it's Japan. They once dedicated an entire symphony to a Valkyrie character from a retro Namco game. So nope, no bias going into this one. All I really know about Sailor Moon is that it's a show about a bunch of girls with impossible legs fighting to protect Earth from an insidious group of villains said to come to Earth by way of the Negaverse, who can only be defeated after suggestive transformations. But the toughest challenge might be balancing their personal lives while the fate of the planet rests on their shoulders. Guided by a talking cat, they learn over times of the fates that await them. And this sounds like the best show ever. Why haven't I watched it? Basically, think of it as an anime version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch and you'll be fine. Features a girl with powers, talking cat, life responsibilities, crushes, comedic banter, and occasionally gets featured in conventions where so long as we don't talk about the final season of the movie, no one gets stabbed and we all walk out better, happier, healthier people. With all this said, I was curious and excited to check out this album when I bought it a couple of years ago. I know there's no other Sailor Moon Orchestra compilation lying around. Oh wait! There was, or could have been, Sarah Symphony. Where were all you magic wand twirlers at then? Don't tell me that's not you. I've seen those wands. I freaking want those things. It wasn't even that big of a fun goal. Well, how come you didn't support it, Seth? I found out late. This album, Sailor Moon R Symphonic Poem, is pretty much as it reads. To clarify, it's music from the movie, only orchestrated and rearranged, so it's kind of a score, but mostly an original project. The music was rearranged and orchestrated by Toshiyuki Watanabe of Shenmue and Mothra fame. It was conducted by Richard Pittman, of all people. That's notable because compared to everything else he's done, this project sticks out like a sore thumb. The City of London Sinfonia performed the music, the same people who performed in the bizarre Shin Megami Tensei Sound Relation album that same year. All I could think when I first gave this album a listen was that I was hoping that the franchise that is Sailor Moon would offer something different musically to the table. Did it happen? Well, let's find out. The opening piece is one of my favorite pieces of music of all time. What? No, I'm freaking serious. If I had a top 10 list of classical music pieces, this one would be somewhere in there. Boy, have I overhyped this piece for you. I almost question whether or not I should talk about it, but perhaps you might just be wondering what makes this one so particularly special. Sometimes you just get a weird sixth sense about things. And when I listened to this piece, as soon as it started, I had a feeling about where it was going. Actually, more than a feeling, I knew where it was going. And most of the time when you know stuff like that, things become a little bit boring. You're tired. You don't want to sit through something you know is going to happen. Not for this one. This is one of those special cases where you know what's going to happen, and that makes you excited. When the strings come serenely floating in, I just knew what was awaiting me. Enough already. What's it like? The beauty of a piece like this is that it all revolves around one chord, or the building up to it. One chord. That's the destination of this piece, and it takes forever to get there, but once you do, bam! Everything becomes clear. It's a wise and clever working of orchestration also, and indicative of what a clever placement of instruments will do to spark multiple interpretations out of a single piece. What I mean by that is even though it has a pretty straightforward structure, they didn't let that stop them from implementing a variety of techniques, giving the piece a lush, flourishing build that reaches out in different places, giving it a much less linear feel than it otherwise could have had. It's a really vivid piece that does not have to try very hard to spark your imagination. It's all precisely magnified by the smooth introduction of viola and cello. You keep getting closer to something, shrinking in scale as you reach perhaps a person dabbling in lonely wandering as the flute and oboe become more resonant and melodic. The strings more sustained also. So how do I know when I reach this chord you're talking about, Seth? I don't have psychic powers. Well, I'll give you a clue, even though you really don't need it. It's played by the piano, an instrument with a long career in breaking hearts and making them sound pretty. And once the chord is reached, it's as if the piece begins to zoom out again, with 4 sustained chords from the string section sulking away as if it was hardly ever there, leaving you. If it's true that pain is the most beautiful thing on this planet, this piece would serve as a viable candidate. Sounds overly pretentious and romantic, Seth. Romantic? Well, sure. Just about every piece on here can be chalked up to romanticism. Is it ever a bit much? Shockingly, no. Whether this is due to the album's strong opening or overall liveliness is up to any one listener to decide. But to me, Symphonic Poem keeps both an open heart and an open mind, and that is perhaps its strongest asset. It knows what it wants to express, and the arrangements make that clear. I mean, yeah, on the wrong day, could you look to a piece like this and call it cheesy? Sure, but I've hardly ever had a wrong day like that. At its best, R knows how to build, and better yet, it knows how to give you the payoff. The final moments of this prelude, taken on its own, sound almost cruel despite whimsy, possibly naive build-up, and that's what makes this resonate so much with me. Ultimately, it's a chord of sudden, overbearing pain that'll leave you only with the wallowing comfort of a smooth string section. Whether you lament at the end that something of great tenderness has been utterly destroyed, or take to heart that it was ever there to begin with, it leaves an impression, and it's just so pretty. Yeah, I cried. I don't care who knows it, and I'm not that kind of person who cries at games or movies or any of that. But this? Screw it. My eyes get moist plenty of times listening to this. I've shed tears for it, yeah. It's good. I'm getting kind of Jerry Seinfeld just thinking about it. The opening piece of Sailor Moon is really good. I mean, now that I've exhausted you on it, you'll probably go ahead and listen to it and think I'm out of my mind for saying it's as great as it is, but I stand by it. This is one of my top 10 favorite pieces of all time. It reminds me why I even bothered obsessing over orchestral music in the first place. Makes me happy.
Oh, so what about the 7 other tracks?
Huh? Oh, right, those. They're alright, I guess. Now, some might argue, especially those accustomed to Sailor Moon's music, that this symphonic poem doesn't have the versatility, peppiness, or jazzy quality that the original music does. It may use a lot of its thematic material, but something is lost. I can understand that, especially in this soundtrack's decision to go with a more straightforward orchestral setup, but I feel this is more a matter of something lost and something gained. Is it the most faithful adaptation it could be? No, but does it do a pretty good job respecting the source material while being its own thing? I think so. Of course, from my lens, this entire project was more about what Sailor Moon could do for orchestra than what the orchestra could do for Sailor Moon. I'm fond, really, of both approaches. In this particular case, Sailor Moon's more luminous jazz and glimmering disco funk qualities have a lesser role here than the rich Morricone-styled fireworks do. There's a lot of bolster and shimmering in R, perhaps more than in the original music, but it doesn't feel so much like some intrusion over the original music as it does an expansion of it in certain areas that feel just as much Sailor Moon, even if some stuff is left behind. Nor does it feel like some sort of lazy, half-attempted orchestral adaptation. Orchestra. All in all, I don't think it's a bad thing. It just shows the versatility and creative ideas music like this can spark. It's not as if some of the stuff I mentioned here is completely gone. You'll hear a lot of it in track 2. For some of these pieces, the brass section can take away some of the smoothness I apply to the original music, but it does give it a suitably graceful punch that I do enjoy. It's a shame then that it doesn't take the same ambitious approach with tracks 3 and 4. Track 3, Lovely Maiden and Mysterious Cat, is a fitting name. It has a trot-like pace with a slight Peter and the Wolf influence. The lighter winds happily hop about whilst my main man, the oboe, occasionally enters to add a more settled texture. I like this piece. The problem is they repeat it, stretching a 3-minute piece into almost 5. They didn't really need to. I like the ending they gave it, though anything ending with a chord familiar to Midsummer's Night Dream doesn't have to try very hard to win me over. I feel bad for saying this, but track 4 feels a bit disappointing, mainly because there still feels like some kind of missed potential here. It's dark, atmospheric, and lingers with a beautiful sense of danger. A clarinet underpins lurking strings. The whole thing goes in and out of reminding me of dark moments in other great scores. The danger of Indiana Jones in the beginning, the ominous build of Jumanji in the middle, and leans towards something almost Lawrence of Arabia or Outcast with an exotic turn. The reason it leaves me disappointed, I guess, is because I just wanted it to keep going and build into something even stronger and resonant. It has a great sense of contrast. Cello and bass provide a great sense of weight and concern, as lighter winds try their best to lure you. What may sound like a simple atmospheric piece is something with forces at constant odds, yet melded into one cohesive musical experience. I just freaking love music like this, and it feels like I get so little of it that's done in such an expansive way as this. You got any more music like this, man? I really need it. Track 5 is based off of a song, but the orchestration turns it into something half English march and half Latin tango. This piece is where Sailor Moon's pop elements feel most evident, with some beautiful lines that breathe with gorgeous vitality and aplomb. The constant reprise of its march-paced melody, flickering castanets, coy bass, and hypersensitive strings help make its vehement tone last throughout. The final 3 tracks are where the album's aforementioned fireworks and bleeding hearts come into play. You'd think it'd bring with it some fatigue by the end, but it doesn't. Does track 7 wear its heart on its sleeve? You bet, but it does it well. This one is like the first piece, though, with multiple build-ups and release of tension, each one greater than the last. It's proof that you can have big, dramatic outbursts without losing any sincerity whatsoever. Both it and track 8 have a very wary beginning that eases you into set outbursts. Track 8 has a very nocturne beginning, only a bit more expressive. It changes gear after a cadence with sorrow and resolution. It's one last energy charger before one final bittersweet farewell that this album truly deserved. And with that said, I give Sailor Moon R Symphonic Poem 5 stars out of 5. So what, is this album some kind of musical masterpiece up there with the thorough, complex diligence of Mahler or Hindemith? No. Could you make a case for it? Maybe for the first piece. It's entertaining from beginning to end, and even when it dips or slides, it has something to quickly make up for it. It's musical pop art, and is it masterful within those confines? Heck yeah! I mean, there are even symphonic albums of the great Shostakovich's more mainstream stuff, or Prokofiev, and I love those, but they ain't no Sailor Moon symphonic poem. They don't thoroughly entertain from beginning to end as well as this does, and as unabashed as this music may be, and it is, it still manages to work. For all of the album's more positive moments, there's a lot of pain being carried throughout it, and Watanabe and Hoffer's interest seem most geared in that direction. I'm usually most fond of albums whereby each piece has a strange effect on the other, and here you get such a wonderful mix of ecstasy, innocence, exhilaration, and heartbreak that many of the tracks have even more impact after one has listened to each in its entirety. It makes me sad, then, that this album is as unknown as it is, and it's my hope, whether you're a Sailor Moon fan or not, that you give it a listen. This was an allergy-riddled Seth for the final note. Thanks for watching. Be safe. Have fun. See you next time.